How are we all today? Yeah, all good? Say hello to everybody. Nice. Hello to whoever's down below, underneath you in the grid, and who's to your left and right. Martin is doing a fabulous one, so Martin's this way. Hey, Martin. So absolutely delighted that Martin is co-host with us today, and there's a very good reason for that. Paul, are you still okay admitting people into the waiting room? That's very kind, thank you. So what we are going to do today is go through our very first WiSE Wednesday webinar. So you are all joining us in this kind of journey. Hi Lizzie, hi Nora. Very warm welcome to you. So my name's Sally Ryan, I'm working with iSE, so I've got a couple of my colleagues here. So any other iSEers? Do a hands up. Whoop, whoop. Lovely, lovely. And we are basically working within the social enterprise sector, and we've recognised that obviously there's an awful lot going on at the moment with COVID. We've kind of got through the first month, which is a massive thumbs up for everybody, because it has been a really, really tough time where we've had to take on board some really big changes in a very short space of time. And that's difficult for all of us because we all deal with change in very, very different ways. And it's not only affected our businesses, but it's at a very personal level. So we invited Martin to join us today, really to just kind of help us all, have a little bit of a check-in, see how we're all doing a month on, knowing that we've still got a few more weeks to go of lockdown. But also then we've got to come out of lockdown, and what we really want to do is build that resilience and kind of help everybody stay connected and really kind of get that motivation for sort of, you know, the what's next, if you like. And that is whatever that may be in your world. So is everybody okay that that's what we're kind of here for today? Yeah? Yeah. Wonderful. Now, a little bits of housekeeping. We are recording this. So in your email joining instructions, I did just kind of mention that if anybody really didn't want to be on the podcast or the video that's going to go up on our YouTube, please, please, please do opt out now, because once Martin starts speaking, that's it. We're kind of like not going live, but we will be using that recording as sort of marketing and putting it on our website, etc. And I fully appreciate people may be sensitive about that. You're very welcome if you prefer to stay in this webinar, but if you might want to turn your own video off and still join us with audio. So that's entirely your prerogative. Please do what you feel most comfortable with yourself. But if you stay in, as of now, we are kind of taking it that you're happy to be part of this journey with us, and also to have that sort of public use on website, YouTube channels, etc. afterwards. One of the things, I don't know how many people are very, very new to Zoom. The iSE team have been using it and sort of finding our way around it, but it does have a couple of different functions. If you go to the very top of your screen, I appreciate some people may be on mobiles, some people may be on iPads, etc. At the top of my screen on my laptop, you have a speaker view and a gallery view. At the moment, everybody that I'm seeing is on a grid, which means that you're in gallery view. We can all see each other. I might suggest that when Martin starts talking, when I give him a moment, you might want to move that to speaker view, because then Martin, his beautiful face will fill the screen, much as it is now. It just makes it a lot easier for you. We are going to be muting when Martin's speaking and then coming on board. Now, I might have to actually ask people to physically go on and mute themselves, because for some reason Zoom has decided that Martin's email isn't going to be accepted as a co-host. So if you can go down to your bottom left-hand button when I ask you all to, and just pop yourselves on mute. I can see that some of you are. It will just mean that Martin can carry on speaking, and we'll do some Q&As much more towards the end. However, final thing, there is a chat function on the bottom of the bar around the middle with a sort of a speech bubble thing to it. So if you have any questions as we go through this, and as Martin talks about the kind of the 4 areas that he wants to cover today, please do pop a question in the chat section. I will pick that up, and then we'll pick out a few, maybe at the end of each section, and at the very end of the session today, so that we can have a bit of a Q&A. So if you have a burning question, please do ask it. If anything comes to mind after the session, pop an email to me, and then I'm sure that maybe Martin and I can have a chat and work something out. Is everybody good with that? Fabulous. So we've done all of the extra bits and pieces. So this is managing mental health. It's an informal, friendly session. So it's not, you know, a big, deep personal expose. But as I said, we've all gone through a lot of change. We're all having to make a lot of adjustments kind of thing. And it's just a really great opportunity to check in and kind of see how we're all doing. And Martin has got a fantastic background. He's a counsellor, very well respected within his professional field nationwide. But he started citizen coaching 15 years ago, I think I'm correct in saying, and also works with Living Well Consortium around delivering mental health and counselling services across Birmingham. So I think you deliver on average about 8,000 hours a year in counselling services, Martin?
Up to 20,000 now.
Whoa. Incredible. That's amazing. So one of the things, just to share a little bit, is I have a couple of strategies that I know I've developed when things have been a bit rubbish, because life can be a little bit rubbish sometimes. It's how you deal with it. And I brought in with me today, this is my gratitude jar, or one of them. Melanie Glass probably knows this and may even have one, yes? So this is just one of my little strategies for coping and being resilient. And if I pull this out, Martin, this is your challenge. Do you recognise these?
They are rather familiar.
2016.
Wow.
So Martin has been working in this area of counselling, and he's been working very closely with iSE for a number of years, but those are in my gratitude jar, and I thought you might like that. So I'm just going to kind of hand over to Martin, just sort of like give us a quick check-in. How are things with you? How are things with Citizen Coaching and the other guys, some of the team here from Citizen Click?
Well, I mean, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. It's a great privilege. I really feel great to be here, and to thank you so much for taking the time. And I hope you'll find some of the things useful when it comes to sharing what we've been up to. And as Sally was very much saying, that with the work with the Living Well Consortium, Citizen has been on a very upward trajectory with the number of counselling sessions that we deliver. So up to 20,000 a year. You could imagine that with what's happening now, our business could have been decimated very, very quickly, and that of the consortium as well. And I think we have 60 counsellors altogether. As you know, many of them... 60 counsellors altogether. I'm getting a bit of feedback. Can you hear me?
Yep.
You can hear me. So we have all these counsellors here, and we've been very. Some of them were working online already, but we've been able to move other counsellors onto the Zoom platform, and also Ed, Matt, Nate, Judy, and Katie have been helping counsellors that have never considered doing this work before, putting them through a training program, making sure that they follow best practices with Zoom. And of course, just as we were all doing that, Zoom itself was under some sort of privacy issues and questions as well. So you know, I think it's a great credit to the team that people have done that. And what we very much wanted to do today is that we've collected a number of resources that would be useful for counsellors, useful for people in working with Zoom. And you know, I'd like to open that up. You know, if anybody wants a bit of support to know where to start, then we can give you access to some of those documents that we've got on our shared server. And we found that about 85% of clients have been happy to move from face-to-face counselling onto onto the online counselling, either using Zoom. The young people that we work with, very happy to do WhatsApp. Well, that's okay because that's encrypted at both ends as well. And WhatsApp is something that people, many young people in particular have got access to. So the transition really, it's been very structured, and we've used a series of resources so that those counsellors that aren't currently working online. Brilliant. I see this very much as an opportunity where what we do in the coming weeks will be remembered by people. So you're either going to be remembered as as people that kind of stepped up to the challenge and did everything you could to try and help your workforce, your volunteers, and your clients or service users, or you're going to be remembered as the people that completely abandoned them and didn't make the effort. And I know it's much harder for some people to do than others, but I think this will linger with us. And I'm sure we've all seen local shops near us pay £10 for some hand gel that was 50p a few weeks ago. And the word that always gets used by the Chancellor is we are in unprecedented times. But when have we ever in our living memory had to queue outside a supermarket to find there was no toilet paper when we got there? And the panic buying of pasta and Worcester sauce for some reason up here in Halifax in Yorkshire.
I can send you some.
So Sally's been hoarding all the Worcester sauce. So I think we're going to be remembered for what we do in this time, and that means there's a huge opportunity for loyalty to be. Whether it be our volunteers, our workforce, our service users, whatever we can do, it's good to know that we did whatever we could to try and keep a continuity of service in such challenging times. And when we were putting this together today, we were looking at a number of key areas that we could look at, which would help with mental health.
Fantastic. Thank you, Martin. And I think you were so right. I'm sure everybody's had their own conversations with family, friends, neighbours, local communities within the realms of social distancing as appropriate, about as hard as it is, and everybody's got their own version of hard. That doesn't make mine more important than somebody else's or less important than somebody else's. We're all dealing with our own set of difficult. But I think that most people would say that the compassion, the care, the kindness, let's hope that people are resilient enough to be able to come through this as a collective, because we can't do this on our own, and actually that we still managed to hang on to some of those new senses, that sort of vibrancy, I think, sort of within community. And obviously social enterprises, we're based around civil society. As Martin said, it is challenging at this moment, and for the next few weeks, maybe the next few months, because we've got to come out of this and start trading again, etc. But wouldn't it be great if actually this is our moment, and that this is actually a fantastic opportunity in terms of the civil society that we all know and love, a social enterprise, is really kind of beginning to come into its own.
I think the challenge that we have is it can be easy to be in a bubble, and if you watch too much of the TV, then there's celebrities doing gym workouts, and there's people meeting and having tea parties, and it's all great, and we're all baking a loaf and seeing who's got the best one.
Melanie, I want that cake.
and so
I sent you a recipe.
so you could imagine that life is sweet out there, and we're forgetting. If you were to just be in that bubble, you would forget that some people don't have an unlimited data plan on their phone, or might not even have a phone. Some people relied on a library to get their Wi-Fi. They never had Wi-Fi. They never had Wi-Fi at home in the first place, and now they've got no toilet rolls. They've got to educate. They've suddenly got to now educate their kids at home and keep them occupied.
And have no money, suddenly
no money
income just stopped. Know whether
even if they're being furloughed, well, when's the money coming? Am I getting paid as normal? And so very much within mental health, a lot of the referrals have been stopping because the GP would refer, well, they're shut. The schools would refer, well, they're shut. The family workers are occupied elsewhere. So there is a whole hidden population of people who will emerge, hopefully will emerge in the next few weeks, really having suffered in these few weeks. And that's where we can step up and be ready and have a look at what the new challenges are out there.
Brilliant, because we're not all necessarily equipped within a broadband width to actually deal with this level of, I've got a flat, I don't have a garden, I'm in 23 hours a day. So I have my hours exercise, and it's how I'm able to cope with that versus somebody else. And we're all, I think, have days, which, as we've said, you don't have to be okay every day. You don't have to be the bright shining light, posting out lots of beautiful pictures and staying positive for everybody else. We're all going to have different levels, different waves kind of thing in terms of how we're feeling. And being able to sort of restore and reset ourselves is just so important in terms of building this resilience. So today, if it's okay, the sort of 4 areas that Martin is going to sort of work through with us. Structuring time. People may be a fair little way along that particular journey, now that we're sort of 3-4 weeks into lockdown, but there's the sudden realization that we're not coming out of lockdown anytime soon, within days. It is going to be weeks, and actually then we kind of fall into a phase 2 of how we structure our time, perhaps. Also keeping focus. And how we can keep our focus, because that can be difficult when you're in perhaps limited space, or you've got all of those other family distractions, as Martin described, going on around you. Keeping motivated, very, very important, sort of accepting that when things don't feel great, that they will kind of come round. I always love the sunrises in the morning. I'm very lucky to get those out my window, and that's kind of my reset. That's my, get motivated again for the day ahead. And also keeping connected, whatever that may be to you within your sort of social circles, but obviously we're also talking sort of within professional settings now that we're all working from home. So those really are the kind of 4 areas that I think you're going to talk us through, Martin.
Yeah, I think so, and I think there were so many different places that we could go with this. But one of the things that I'm picking up from clients and from some of the messages that are coming through is about time, about how every day seems to be the same. You sometimes I found myself just thinking, what day is it today? Is it, because it just feels like each day could be there, and it could be the same, and so I think there's 4 things that I've kind of put down for time. The first really was to have some kind of schedule. I've seen that at some schools the kids even put on their school uniform to go to classes just to signal this. Now I might be sat here in my underpants, but I do have a shirt on. No, so I've dressed up. I've dressed up for the occasion this afternoon. So having a schedule, and for me, I'm a bit of an early person, so I like to get things out of the way in the morning. Then I'll go and do my walk and my physical activity around the middle of the day. A little bit red today, very sunny today, and then work in the afternoon, and then the webinars we've been doing have been in the evening. So that's been really useful. So having some kind of schedule has really helped put it together, and that's something that anybody can do, whatever the schedule is for them. The second part is really the boundaries. And of course, anybody that works from home, the challenges are, when are you working, when are you not? People are going to put time aside if there are a family there. So schedule the boundaries about when you're working and when you're not working. Prioritization. So what are going to be the key priorities at the moment? So for me, I'm looking at, well, some of these government assistance, some of these, how do we get in board? And it's something that looks so simple. It seems so simple that, for example, as a business rates payer who gets small business rates relief, that the council are giving £10,000 to everybody that qualifies, and all the details are on gov.uk and it's very clear. However, when you actually go to a website and actually start applying for this, the first question is, what's your reference number? How much is your business rates? And when did you last pay them? All information that's probably stuck in your office.
Yeah.
So sometimes the help that's at hand there isn't quite as easy to access as maybe it could be. So that there's a few things in there. So I think prioritizing some of those important things. And then the final thing, which I think it was a bit of fun. I don't know how many of you, maybe you can raise your hand. Have you got one of those little kitchen timers at home that looks like a tomato? Anybody?
No.
Little tomato. I can see a hand up from Anne there, and it's something called the Pomodoro technique. And but even if you don't have a tomato timer, the idea is that what you can do is you can set your timer for 15 minutes, so you can break your tasks down into 15-minute intervals and say, right, I'm gonna tackle these. They're going to tackle these tasks. I'm going to do 15 minutes on this area. Then I'm going to stop. I'm going to do 15 minutes on the next. So you can prioritize your tasks and move around. And that's been quite useful to help people structure, time.
And this sort of 15 minutes is if we're realistic, because obviously work settings, we're often in meetings for hours and hours kind of thing. But is 15 minutes, is that a good section of time to be able to be productive?
Yeah, so I think particularly if you've got distractions going on in life, is by setting a 15-minute part aside and having a look and saying, well, what can I do in 15 minutes? It could be your making an outward phone call to somebody. Mm-hmm. It could be that you're going to schedule to do some social media posts, or you're going to have 15 minutes researching online about something. And then, you get up, you have a walk around, you come back and you do the next for 5 minutes or so, and you do the next segment. So you tend to just structure things together. And that's been quite a useful way with clients to get them to start thinking in a more kind of structured way, rather than the day just meandering on aimlessly.
Yeah. So does anybody, a big sort of show of hands, as Martin suggested, anybody sort of already using things like sort of scheduling, whether you do use your egg timer or a sort of oven timer type thing? Is anybody using that and finding that helpful? Yes. So Paulette, I can see you're sort of there. Okay, and anybody thinking, actually, that's a really simple thing that maybe I could actually start using and that would really help them? Maybe. Thank you, Samantha. You're with us. You're there. Excellent. And that's it. Today is really just about everybody getting maybe just one little nugget out of this. Maybe actually the nugget is just coming together. It's the first time you've used Zoom, and it's the first time you've seen, outside faces in 3-4 weeks kind of thing. So whatever that may be, that's absolutely fine. So
the second area we said we would look at is focus. And whenever we talk about focus, there's always one quote that comes to mind for me, and it's a quote from a guy called Tim Ferriss, who wrote a book called The 4-Hour Work Week. And he asks the question, and this is a question to everybody, is, are you working in your business or are you working on your business? And for so long, we work in our business. I, as a counsellor, if I was seeing, 6 clients a day, I'm very much working in my business. I have 50-minute segments with a 10-minute break working with clients. I'm in my business, I'm heads down, I'm fully immersive, present and concentrating on that. But when I'm doing that, I'm working in my business. what Tim Ferriss says is that you need to have a look and see what the right proportion is for you, but when do you get time to work on your business? And when I'm working with counsellors, helping them set up a private practice, people say, well, actually, I spend all my time heads down doing counselling. I spend less than 10% of my time actually working on my business. And here is the opportunity. Here is the opportunity where if we're not able to work with our the people that use our service, but we do have time on our hands, is this the time to update the website? Is this time to write some blogs? Is this time to create a new product? Try out Zoom. I had a very surprising call. There's a local one of the local political parties just phoned me up randomly and was saying, "Oh, hello, I just wonder how you're doing. If there's anything you need, do you need any shopping doing or whatever?" I think it's probably because I'm over 50, but it was.
Surely not.
But I don't know where they got the information from. But it just seems like that there is the opportunity to work on the business and remake acquaintances, spend time doing what we're doing for 45 minutes today. Have a look through some old emails. It's always useful to go back, have a look at your emails from a year ago if you can. Who were you talking to then? What was happening? So spending time on the business, looking at how can I work on my business. And I found 4 particular areas I thought might be useful. So I thought people, places, finance and funding. So I was thinking, okay, well, people comes first. Let's check in on those volunteers. Let's check our teams are okay and our clients are okay. Thinking about places. Now, one of the challenges I guess we have is we've all been so used to working all together in an office. Now we're all working, many of us working from home. Are we going to go back to work exactly as we did before all this, or is there a new way? Is there a new way of working? So people and places, finance, having a look and seeing, how can I make the finances stack up? And there's some good news stories out there. There really are. The Zelig building, which is the front part of the custard factory we're based in, that's owned by Benny Gray. He halved the rent for everybody for the nepeople 3 months. Just wrote out to us all saying, "Look, no, times are tough. We're just going to half the rent." So some people out there want to do that. I know that some of the social investors have put payments freeze on made it loans interest only, or looking to help people. So there is some good stuff going on out there, and of course funding. And you've only got to sign up to at the moment, whether it be Locality or Social Enterprise UK, sign up to newsletters, and people are consolidating the funding. The funding update I always like, I know is the one that Alan Seven always sends out, which is from SCVO, Sandwell Voluntary Organisation. You can go onto their website and see their latest very comprehensive list of funding. So getting connected into some of those to see what the latest funding opportunities are. And I know some people that are on the call today are very have a lot of experience of looking at these.
Okay.
The third section we said we'd look at. Sorry, Sally.
It's all right. I was just wondering at that moment, because I think that's really interesting, the sort of the working in the business and working on the business, and especially those people who the business is just them, self-employed, micro entrepreneurs, etc. That can be quite a tough place, because you think I've just got to keep doing, and I've got to kind of keep trying to find the money, but you're not thinking about it from a cash flow and a forecasting type perspective, and what will the world look like in 3 months time, hopefully, when life is picking up and becoming the new norm. And either Paul or Simon, I don't know if one of you could unmute. And I know Zahir at Birmingham Impact Football Academy, he's been using his downtime to work on his business, and is a really, really good worked example. I don't know whether either of you want to pick up on that.
Yeah, we've been working with Zahir. He's come up with he's actually used the downtime to look at where he can diversify and do things differently, which is good, because most of his normal business, which is running kids' football teams, has fallen through the floor for the time being. And so what he's doing is using his time to set up an online agency to bring coaches and clubs together, not just football, but across the board, sports coaches. And one of the challenges he has in a day-to-day job is finding coaches and then keeping them. And there's lots of coaches about, but clubs don't know where the coaches are. Coaches don't know what clubs need them. So he's using his kind of downtime, although he's not totally down because he's still promoting and doing stuff online. But the time that he's in the field with kids learning to play football, he's using that to put more time into his kind of strategic planning. It's a really good idea, and he's done some market research on it, and it'll be going online very, very soon. And we're supporting him with that. The same as we can support many organisations in Birmingham. We're still doing what we do. We're doing it differently, as Martin says. It's all changed, and I've been doing kind of the diagnostic work over the phone and through video, and we still get stuff done. It's surprising how many people are still going and still working and still and using the time cleverly, really, around planning and doing a bit of a reset on their business and say, okay, how's this going to affect me? Because I think one of the, it's the right time to think about trying to come out of this and how's it going to affect my business now, because Martin has said this won't be the same. It will not be the same. People will think differently and they'll do different things, and maybe the current business model that we've all been operating since the year dot will not apply or not be as popular after this changes.
Thanks, Simon. I think one of the, just before we sort of move back to Martin, one of the other things that Zahir has done is, interestingly, he's also registered for one of the many free Open University courses. So he's using the time to upskill himself as well and gain further qualifications that will directly enhance his offer when we can actually all come out of lockdown and social distancing. So hopefully maybe, quite abstract, because you'd think running sort of football academy for youngsters, particularly from deprived areas, that's quite a toughie to keep going in the current circumstances. But those were a couple of worked examples, which I hope support what you were just saying, Martin, about working on the business and using this enforced downtime productively.
It's great examples, and I know I've met him many times at the DSEC, the Digbeth Social Enterprise Quarter breakfast networking. So he's always got a new idea. Fantastic,
brilliant. Thank you.
I wanted to go into next a little bit about the kind of motivation side, really, and maybe come up with three things that are really, really useful that can be used with clients. And it's something that we use very much in the anger management program when we're talking about ways of managing difficult situations. And we always talk about putting things in three categories: to find something physical, something calming, and something distracting. And I found that by looking at these three things, it really can help with getting motivation together. And we know that doing something physical releases those feel-good endorphins and getting it going, and it works like a dynamo. It's hard to get that first walk in, but once it's done, it's easier to do the second one. So something physical, something calming. Very much. We made our anger management program that's online, that's £27. We've made that free, and we've let everybody know across the UK and about it. We've had several hundred people sign up for it. And people can just go to citizencoaching.com. Please spread it the news far and wide. You can go to citizencoaching.com and you'll just see a very prominent link to getting it for free. But we've been doing that because so many people living at home, it's becoming a pressure cooker. And whether that being the teenagers spending more time at home, or couples that don't spend so much time at home. There was quite a good debate going on LinkedIn a couple of days ago where somebody was criticising people for queuing outside B&Q and saying about how come it's an essential service for B&Q, and somebody else said, well, actually, what an essential service would be if someone's queuing up to get a bit of decking, or to improve their home, or they're working on something. They're working on something in a physical way, painting a fence or renewing something, or completing a bit of DIY around the house, or whatever. These are all good things. And the debate was actually that could be an essential service because we're giving people things to do. And some people whose hobbies, they just can't do them at the moment. How are they coping with their mental health? So thinking about something physical, something calming, and the third part, something distracting. If things are getting really tough, and we talk about the stressometer, about how different things in life chip away, starting at a 0, going all the way up to a 10, with 10 sending you flying off the handle. How can you keep your stress levels down at maybe that 3 or 4 level? And something physical, something calming, and something distracting. Mix it up a bit, and see if that can help with it. So
it must
that's
be quite
something
hard. It must be quite hard for people who are living with partners. Maybe, if you're both out at work, you haven't spent that much time in a 24-hour period together. And we all know Christmas is usually stressful because we're all thrown in together. And by Boxing Day, it's just let me out of here. So any kind of just quick hints and tips. So I think that 3-stage approach that you've described is great, but kind of how to approach those conversations if the person that is you're living with, because some people sort of got a bit stranded in various households kind of thing. What's a good way maybe to start trying to approach that conversation without it appearing critical of the other person and escalating tension?
I think one of the most interesting ways that I've seen that done is when people talk about having a common enemy. So it's kind of accepted. Well, here we are. The common enemy that we've got here is we have a virus. There's a virus out there, and we're in it together, and we've got to make the best of it. How are we going to do it? So how are we going to just be really explicit about it? How are we going to make sure we don't, get on each other's nerves? How are we going to allow each other the space to, maybe sharing responsibilities in a different way than you normally would, dividing the responsibilities and the tasks in a different way. But I think there is this kind of this little bit of spirit about there being a common enemy that we agree on. The Stephen Covey 7 Habits book very much talks about win-win situations. And he said a win-win situation is where both parties win in a conflict situation. And he said, so often we end up in a win-lose or a lose-win. One person gets their way. And people say, well, the answer is to compromise. And then no one gets their way and nobody's happy in compromising. So he said, look for the win-win. How can everybody get a little bit of what they want? So I think that's what I've seen as being useful.
And sort of using bell curve approaches maybe. So a sort of, this is going really well and I love this bit. This is the common enemy bit to talk about, but ending on maybe a little bit of gratitude. This is something I found out about you that I didn't really know and that actually is amazing. to be
I mean,
thankful.
I was speaking to somebody who was saying, I'm learning a new musical instrument. I said, well, what are you learning? And they said, I got the drum kit out. Make sure you give the neighbours the anger management link.
Simon, how are your neighbours with your musical practices and the accordion and the guitar and everything else?
They're pretty good, actually. We're lucky that we've got a fair amount of space, but I'm learning French horn, so I do that in the garden regularly. That makes as much noise as it. And I've been playing Disney tunes on the French horn, which is cool. And then we, on the Thursday night, the clapping thing, we've been out with banjos and accordions and stuff, playing stupid music, just for the sake of it, really, but it's good fun. But no, we just, it's all full of music. Luckily, we've got open space next door because we've got a school, and then we've got an old boy next door who doesn't hear anything, which is really useful. Okay. So we don't upset him.
Okay, so
wonderful. Well, there you go. There you go. Something calming and distracting, and maybe physical.
Fantastic. Yeah. So just a very sort of brief time check. So we're at 2:45. So I think you're sort of onto your last topic, really, Martin, aren't you? Before we do a little bit more Q&A, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean the last one really is about connections, and I guess it's trying to, when it comes to our workforce, our volunteers, and our people who use our service, is try and meet them where they are the best we can. We're not going to be able to offer the same service in a lot of cases, but what could we do? What could we do? And I was hearing about one organisation that was actually using the post very effectively. It was saying, well, we've got a database of people. Why? My word, we could actually send them a letter in the post. And
put technology back in its box.
Yeah, so I think getting a bit old school, and going with the gratitude thing of maybe whether it be sending cards or kind of writing to people about what we're doing. I think keeping connected in all different ways, really. It's really interesting if you have a look and see what the Facebook strategy is for the next 3 years. Zuckerberg said earlier this year that in his big address that the Facebook strategy was all about creating groups that connected people of similar interests, and that privacy was going to be a real priority as well. So it's going to be about groups, and it's going to be about privacy. The big concentration is giving people the flexibility to lock down their privacy a bit. So interestingly, anything that involves groups of like-minded people, I guess we're all here in a social enterprise, like-minded people. It reminds me of that TV show, The Brady Bunch, where we're all kind of in our little boxes here, or celebrity squares, maybe. And it's making that connection for people. And maybe you do something like this. You get a few of your team together, or you get some of the service users together and just check in on people. I know Dudley Voices for Choices, Sarah Offley, this is how they're communicating, just like we are today, with some of their people and checking in with them. But of course, we mustn't forget, as we said earlier, that some people don't have a data plan. Some people don't have Netflix or unlimited Wi-Fi. So how can we help? How can we help people with that kind of thing? I think as well, when it comes to connection, it's just about trying some innovative ways and see if people are interested in it. See if people are interested in it. If you don't like Zoom, there's another service you can use if you come to the end of your free trial, which is called Blue Jeans, which is another system very similar to Zoom if you want to try something a little bit different as well.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you.
That's it all. That's what I got for you.
Okay. Anybody want to? I think sort of probably now we might actually just feel free to unmute yourself. We've got one question on the chat group, but if you want to unmute yourself and kind of like raise a hand, and then perhaps Martin, if you're okay with that we'll do a bit of sort of freestyle Q&A for the finish. So just while perhaps people are having a thought and coming off their mute situation. Fiona, are you around? Fiona, can you wave at us? Can't see whether Fiona's waving. Hello, Fiona. You're up on my top in the lovely blue t-shirts, looking very summery and vibrant today. You put a question on the chat board, which was sort of going back to early part of Martin's talk, asking about using WhatsApp for counselling and kind of about privacy. But you will, lovely. You're off mute, so. Yeah. Would you like to explain that a bit to Martin?
Well, it was, we were actually, I'm from Change Brief Therapy, and we were actually discussing various options. We're doing a fair bit of telephone counselling, and a lot of the clients are finding that that's okay for them. They're happy with that. And we've got phones that we can use for that. But we were discussing with some people that they would like to use WhatsApp, and we were aware that it is encrypted. But one of the issues was whether or not you could actually, the counsellor could use their own phone, but obviously not share their number, whether that was possible. And nobody was too clear about that.
No. So my understanding of WhatsApp, and there's two different WhatsApps. There's a personal one and there's a business one, but they're both linked to a mobile number. So the only way I've heard people do it is if you have an unlocked phone, is to swap the SIM card so that you're operating from another number. So that's the only way. That's the only way I've seen people do it, unless anybody has knows otherwise. I mean, within WhatsApp, I mean, it is a bit that some of the settings are a bit difficult. So people can see when you were last online. Well, you can turn that off. To stop the client saying, "Oh, I noticed you're online now. I thought I'd send you a message," and that whole read receipt thing that you get on WhatsApp that says, "Has someone got your message or not?" So there's a few technical settings there, but I've only known about the SIM card swap as being the only way of only way of doing it. Because even if you use it on a laptop, you still have to have the mobile number on there.
Yeah, I guess the other thing with WhatsApp as well is. Just being really cautious that you don't make yourself available 24/7 perhaps, because obviously people can feel that they can still, sort of drop you a message and expect an immediate response at 10:30 at night or something. So making sure, perhaps going back to Martin's scheduling time, that, you do preserve work hours and home hours, personal time kind of thing, because I think we all need a little bit of a glass wall there, don't we, to look after ourselves.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody else want to wave and got a question? No? Is everybody happy? What does anybody like to perhaps kind of share just to sort of what maybe their golden nugget might be that they're going to take away? Oh, hello, Judy, you're waving. Hello.
So, hello, Sally and Martin. Hello. Lots of friends. Hello, Viv. I have a question. I just wondered what people are doing, particularly people like Viv, who's in a not dissimilar situation to me in terms of how are people keeping in touch with their not so much the staff team, because there is a way of, we're kind of quite organised, but in particular I'm very concerned about staying in touch with our volunteers. I spoke to Martin about this a couple of days ago, particularly because not all of them are on, like you said, not all of them have got the right phones or the right data. And my concern is when we're ready to open, and as you know, I'm back involved with a number of social enterprises, will we get those people back? Will they be too frightened? And how are people keeping in touch? Anybody got any nuggets? I know Viv still does a newsletter, which goes out and obviously requires people to be connected, but at least it's something. Even if you've got a newsletter that hasn't got anything to say, you're still sending a newsletter. What are other people's experiences, please?
Anybody?
So I Judy, I think the newsletter idea is great, and I think you could use it in a number of different ways. So again, go old school. You could go to a paper newsletter typed up in Word using a template off Word, just acknowledging acknowledging people on there, and or even sort of put the newsletter inside a card, just because it feels very personal to have that in your hand.
Yeah.
And there's very little people doing it other than pizza leaflets. There's not a lot coming through my door at the moment, and I think that would be a really nice touch. And I think, as you do anyway, is to phone people up and say, look, just phoning you up, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And getting ready to sort of build resilience to come back, as I know that's a big thing for you.
Do you think also with everything that's happened with COVID, I mean, local communities have really mobilised, haven't they, at a very sort of minute, granular level, and looking after their neighbours. They're maybe being coordinated by a local hub that's taken on that role, but which aren't necessarily getting funding to do that. They just feel it's the right thing to do. And it feels, where I am, that it's really reignited this passion for volunteering and for those people that have time, availability, interest, skills, etc. That they're much more comfortable. They've stepped forward, and actually maybe that's an advantage, that we will have a much more volunteer-focused army of local community individuals that will look for new opportunities to get involved.
I think that might only be sustainable though if people don't go back to their old patterns of working.
Yeah.
And I think part of that rise in volunteering is the fact that people either have or perceive to have more time on their hands at the minute, so they're willing to divert that. It'll be interesting. The proof in the pudding for me is whether that kind of carries on afterwards. And the one thing, well, a couple of things I've picked up over the last week or so is the resilience of some people to adapt to this. And, you know, my wife does funerals. She's vicar, she does funerals. She's done 2 funerals online this week, which is like, why, you know, how do you do that? But also, you know, she runs a dementia group, and we've had between 10 and 20 people with dementia on this platform talking, who have accessed it themselves. And, you know, the old thing around, you know, used to bring into meetings around things around older people as well. Don't use IT because they won't get it. Well, they do get it, and they might have to get it in a different way. But, you know, so people will push the boat out and they'll do different things. And I've been so impressed with that, and been great to be involved in those conversations with 90-year-old people on Zoom who have learned to do it in the last couple of weeks, where people have written them off for years, people of that age and that generation can't do it. So that's been a positive for me and holds some hope. But the volunteering thing, yeah, lots of it, I see lots of that. I just worry that it may not be sustainable if people go back to their old ways of living. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting, Simon, because I've taken on some volunteering, but I've had to be really clear and say, as soon as this is over, that volunteering will have to stop, because I'll be going back to my 2 jobs and the volunteering that I normally do that I can't do at the moment. So, you know, I've been very clear from day one of, when life gets back to some sort of normal, whatever that might look like, this isn't going to be happening. So don't get used to me. I'll do what I can now, but this will stop, because I won't have the capacity, and I'm not going to try and add it in to everything else I'm doing when, you know, life sort of returns to some sort of system. But,
I think the volunteering has been really helpful I'm speaking from my own experience as well, like you, Melanie, sort of doing some volunteering within the community, and I'm sure many others here are. That kind of goes back to giving ourselves some structure, doesn't it? And that sense of actually not feeling useless, because when we hear all the stats on the media, you know, we feel a bit useless that, you know, that we're not there on the front line, but actually picking up somebody's shopping, or making sure they get their cancer meds, or just saying hello, or leaving a bunch of £1 daffs on their doorstep, you know, to brighten up their day. All of those things, they help us, they help me, but also, you know, the reciprocation of that for the individual. So I think that volunteering has helped me have that structure that you were talking about, Martin, and to keep a sense of focus and some sense of being useful sort of in these current times. Okay, has anybody else got any other questions or any other burning issues? I'm going to kind of close it then, if that's okay. Martin, was there anything that you wanted to say just kind of in wrapping up?
Just about the connection side, that there really is, I think, going to be a huge opportunity to be connected as we are today, going forward. And as some of you know, as well as being in citizen coaching, I'm also involved with the Living Well Consortium. And if you're an organisation in Birmingham, and then have a look at the Living Well Consortium and just see if it's something you'd like to be a part of as well. So that could be a new way of connecting into something. And they have also some small grants as well for some innovative work.
Fantastic. Okay. So I'm going to share a screen in just a moment, just with some contact details for iSE in case anybody doesn't have them. But I'll do that after thanking Martin. Thank you so much for your time, for your experience, your knowledge, and your humour. You are a real star. It's an absolute pleasure always working with you. Thank you, everybody else. I know it's a chunk of your time in the afternoon. I hope it's been nice just to see a few new faces, maybe reconnect with a few older faces. So for me, I wish you all a really lovely evening. Got beautiful weather down here, so I hope if you haven't had your hour's walk, that you're able to get out, go and enjoy a bit of sunshine, a bit of vitamin D, which apparently we all need. We've got to make sure that we keep topped up, and have a very, very lovely evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you all soon. Okay, so big wave from me.
Before we go, guys, could I get one thing before we go? Yep, a quick screen grab of everyone doing a nice wave.
Oh, brilliant.
Sorry.
Got it. Perfect.
Fantastic.
Right,
Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to pop this screen up, which is just an iSE contact details. So feel free when you're ready, hop out the meeting, go and grab that last bit of evening sunshine, and we look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Okay. Lots of love to everybody. Bye.